Uhuru, everyone, and welcome to this special event titled Why the Struggle for Black Power in St. Louis Matters for the Whole World. Build the Reparations Investment Company. My name is Kara, and I'm a member of the Uhuru Solidarity member movement, and I'm also the coordinator for the donor campaign for the Reparations Investment Company, which is under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. I want to first salute our leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who we have today as a special guest. And I also want to salute Deputy Chair Onazine Yeshitela, who has put on the ground Chairman Omali Yeshitela's vision of the Black Power Blueprint and who leads more than 50 economic institutions of the party. I want to salute my leadership in the Huru Solidarity Movement, Chair Jesse Neville, and salute the African People's Solidarity Committee Chairwoman Penny Hess, who will also be speaking in today's program. This event is part of a monthly event series organized by the African People's Solidarity Committee. The African People's Socialist Party formed the APSC in 1976 with the mandate to organize other white people to build the movement of reparations and genuine solidarity with the liberation of African people. This is APSC's 50th year organizing white solidarity with Black power. Before we get started, if you are tuning in on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe so you can get alerts whenever we go live or post a new video. And if you're tuning in from Facebook, please share this live stream with your friends. And let us know in the comments where you are tuning in from. We will have a Q&A later in the program, so be sure you take notes and enter your questions in the comments on YouTube or Facebook or in the Q&A feature for those on Zoom. So in today's event, we will be discussing the struggle for Black power in St. Louis and why it matters for the entire world. Whatever city you are in, you need to know what is happening in St. Louis right now. And I want to let everyone know that this event is also a fundraiser for the Uhuru Solidarity Center, which is the national headquarters of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. It's a beautiful organizing center located on the south side of St. Louis with a banner outside that reads, Unity Through Reparations. The building is owned by the party's Black Star Industries. And so we have a goal to raise at least $500 tonight. So please go to apscuhuru.org/donate to make a contribution. Now, I want to welcome our first guest, APSC Chairwoman Penny Hess, to begin today's program. Great. Thank you, Chairwoman. And a little bit about Chairwoman Penny.
True.
She was present when the African People's Socialist Party held the founding conference of the Solidarity Committee in the fall of 1976 and has been a cadre member of the African People's Solidarity Committee ever since. In 2001, she published the groundbreaking book, Overturning the Culture of Violence, which, under the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela, detailed the complicity and participation of white people in the historical assaults and colonial violence against African and other oppressed peoples. Uhuru, Chairwoman Penny, I want to turn it over to you.
Uhuru, Kara, thank you so much. It's always really a pleasure to see you, and I'm so glad that you're here, and I appreciate all the leadership and just everything that you bring to the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And I want to salute everybody who's on with us tonight. This is a very important event. I'm so happy for all of the comrades that I know and new comrades who are joining us tonight to hear this message and to be able to have the incredible opportunity to hear Chairman O'Malley Shatella speak and discuss the most profound issues and questions of our time together with us. So I want to start by saluting my leadership, the National Central Committee of the African People's Socialist Party. I want to salute Chairman Omali Shatella and Deputy Chair Ona Zanea Shatella, who is the coordinator in particular of the Black Power front of the Uhuru movement. And we're going to hear more about that front tonight as well. So I'm really happy to be here to talk about why the struggle for Black power in St. Louis matters for the whole world, and uh, why we have to understand how the struggle for Black power, for political and economic power in the hands of the African working class is the driving force in the world today, along with the struggles of all colonized and oppressed peoples, and and how it is that the struggle for Black power, for the liberation of African people changes the world and affects us. And what is our relationship to it? We're going to be talking about that. We want to recognize that this is an incredible time in history when so much is going on. We've seen the struggles in Minneapolis. We've seen the state violence against those who are standing up in solidarity with the right of African and oppressed people to have political and economic power and to not be attacked violently by the United States government or in any form, to understand that African people live under colonialism inside the borders of the United States and around the world. And, we this is a period when the U.S. Armada is approaching Iran. There is high possibility that, and the U.S. is also amassing forces in Puerto Rico with the intention, most likely, to attack Cuba. It's a very serious time. It's a time of U.S. counterinsurgency and an attempt to stop the forward motion of the world, but it is not possible to do that. And this is what we're going to hear from the chairman, and to see that all around the world, African and oppressed peoples in Venezuela, throughout Africa, throughout South America, African people, oppressed and colonized people, indigenous people are rising up and fighting for their national liberation. It's a great time to be alive. And that the African People's Socialist Party represents the vanguard of the struggle for Black power. And that means that they are on the front lines, that they have taken upon themselves, under the leadership of Chairman Omali Shatella, to be responsible for the leadership of the revolution, of the African revolution, which is the cornerstone of the world revolution, based on the understanding that this entire social system rests on a pedestal of the enslavement of African people, the conquest of Africa, the colonial domination of the world, the genocide of the indigenous people and oppressed and colonized peoples around the world, and that it is the resistance of the colonized in Palestine, in occupied Palestine, in here inside the borders, the stolen borders of the United States, and throughout the continent of Africa and the world. It is the resistance of African and colonized peoples that is the forward motion for everyone, for everyone. So tonight, one of the things that we wanted to talk to the chairman about, and we always appreciate talking to you about, Chairman, is what to do about the white people and how it is that um, that the party turns the world right side up by putting the colonizers under the leadership of the colonized. And I wanted to say that, first of all, I just want everybody to know that Chairman Omali Yeshitela has fought for the liberation of African people and fought in profound unity with all oppressed peoples around the world for about 60 years now, without ever changing what he understood and fought for, or what his goals were. He is unbought, unbossed. He cannot be controlled. The United States government attempted to put Chairman Omali Yeshitela in prison for 15 years and attacked Jesse and myself as part of the attack on the chairman. But the chairman was undaunted and led a brilliant struggle to defeat the state. And in fact, part of the victory we are still experiencing because the state has dropped the probation. So we're no longer on probation. So this is an incredible victory. And I just profoundly salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela for his leadership in this case, as in everything based in the profound political leadership that the chairman has always given. I just want to say a couple more things about the political theory that the chairman has brought us that informs all of the work that the chairman has ever done, and how and why there has to be a white solidarity committee under the leadership of the party, and that the chairman had taken it upon himself way back in the 1960s to solve all the problems left unsolved by the US government's attack on the Black liberation movement of the 1960s and the so-called counterinsurgency, the counteroffensive, the COINTELPRO, all of the attacks that the US government launched against that incredible movement that truly changed the world in the 1960s. And the chairman said that his goal was to solve all the problems left unsolved. And one of them was what to do about the white people. So he created the African People's Solidarity Committee. The chairman has always understood and put out that the main contradiction facing African and all oppressed people is colonialism, not racism. It is not the ideas in white people's heads. As the chairman said, it is colonialism, the state, the ability of the U.S. state to, to occupy, control, exploit, rip off, and terrorize African and oppressed people. This is colonialism. And when I first joined the African People's Solidarity Committee in 1976, I would say the deepest thing, and I had never been political in my life. I really knew nothing about what was going on in the world. But when I heard Chairman Omali Yeshitela speak, it made sense to me. It brought science to the world, to how do we understand what is going on. And of course, 50 years ago was when the question of Vietnam was still out there. It was still being fought, and and it was in the wake of the attacks on the African liberation movement, and just all of the science that the chairman brought by explaining and making it clear that African people inside the United States and around the world are colonized and not struggling against racism. African people are not African Americans, the chairman told us. They are Africans, period. And during this historic founding conference held in St. Petersburg, Florida, in 50 years, 60, well, let's see, is it 50 years ago, at a church on 22nd Avenue South in St. Pete, the chairman gave this incredible workshop that lasted 2 days, discussing this fact and quoting Marx and Engels and talking to us white people who were there who knew nothing really about political theory or anything else, really. But he talked to us about this understanding of primitive accumulation of capital. And the chairman read to us from Karl Marx and Engels um, that and talk to us about the fact that the first accumulation, because Europe had been poor and oppressed for 1,000 years, under feudalism in the Middle Ages and up into this period, and that the first time that Europe became wealthy was with the attack on Africa and the kidnapping of African people. So, yeah, so I just want to say that the chairman has given leadership to all of us with his whole question that the struggle is against colonialism, and that the chairman says racism is simply the ideological foundation of capitalist imperialism. So there's a lot more that we can say about that. The chairman quoted to us from Marx that, as the chairman said, quoted Marx. He said, the primitive accumulation plays in political economy about the same part as the original sin in theology. Adam bit the apple, and thereupon sin fell upon the human race, he said. So we're going to talk about this more. And I just want to say that, um, Chairman, your leadership is profound. There's never a day in the last 50 years that I have not seen you fighting for the liberation of African people. You have never taken a day off. Even when you did, you were still fighting for the liberation of African people forefront on your mind. And so, I want to salute you. I want to welcome you to this program, the African People Solidarity Committee tonight. And thank you so much for coming on, Uhuru. And by the way, Chairman, I heard you on Marsha Adebayo's show on I think it's WFPW
Yeah,
from Washington, D.C. early this morning. And now you are here with us. I know you are very much in demand. So I very much appreciate you for coming and joining us tonight, Uhuru.
Uhuru. First of all, let me thank you very much for the introduction. And I want to express my appreciation to everyone who is participating in this incredibly important event. And I'm hoping that we can convince the people who are participating, either directly or via some social media application, that why it is absolutely necessary to join and support the African People Solidarity Committee.
Uhuru.
And I want to say that this is not just a casual declaration that I'm making here. These are extraordinary times that we live in, and our party has played a really important role in bringing this time about. We've seen a tremendous amount of confusion about what the struggle of African people is about. And if you are confused about the struggle of African people, then you are confused about the overall struggle to overturn a rotten, foul social system based on parasitism, slavery, and the like. Is the critical question, is the central question. And I go back to the quote that you referenced by Karl Marx when he talked about how uh, this primitive accumulation, he had to explain how capitalism, which was seen as this horrible entity that had been imposed on the world, how it came about, had to offer an explanation for that. The capital production required capital accumulation and accumulation of capital for it to occur. And he said that we have to presuppose that there was an accumulation of capital that was not a consequence of capitalist production, but a starting point. And he said this starting point he characterized as primitive accumulation. And it was included, among other things, turning Africa into a warren for the commercial hunting of black skins, the extirpation of the indigenous people here, the so-called Aborigines of the Americas, the brutal war that was being waged against people in the East Indies. This is what he was talking about. And there are several things about that that's important, not the least of them being what Karl Marx did was define the situation of the vast majority of the people of the world who were not white, who were not colonizers, as simply existing as objects to facilitate the development of white people, the development of Europe. That's what we're talking about. The emergence of capitalism was the emergence of white power. It did not exist before. Before the rise of capitalism, we were looking at Europeans. There was no Europe. In fact, Europe itself came as a consequence of the attack on Africa, the dispersal of African people throughout the world, forcible dispersal of African people throughout the world, and the colonization that came in the wake of that, as a part of that. This is where we are talking about Venezuela, for example. What's happening in Venezuela was no Venezuela. The Venezuela came about as a part of the process, a consequence of kidnapping Africans and dispersing us throughout this territory that's now called the Americas. There was no America. America came about as a consequence of European settlers taking it upon themselves, a sector of them, taking it upon themselves to take this land, to engage in a struggle with the the lords of Europe, within the feudal system, and to take these resources that previously would go from here. The European settlers came here not to settle. They came here to steal resources and to send them back to Europe, to entities that they call the mother country. And what happened was that it was a lucrative thing that they found, and they decided to keep it for themselves and to fight against
Mhm.
against the nobility in Europe. And this is what the American Revolution was about. The American Revolution, that people talk about no King's Day and no kings, et cetera, et cetera. The removal of the king from the lives of the Europeans who came here was a process of struggling to win the right to oppress and colonize the Africans and who were the labor force, first capital here, and the theft of the land of the indigenous people. This is the foundation.
Mhm.
And so now we see, when we look at Venezuela, what's happening in Venezuela, we're looking at what's happening in this place, this artificial creation, this creation that imposed terror and control over indigenous people and over the African people who were brought in this territory as well. That struggle still is going on from the very beginning. There's never been a time of real peace in this land that we're talking about. Whole peoples have been disappeared, have been wiped out as a consequence of the development of this process and this system. And central to that has been Africa and African people. Let me just say, in moving forward, that when we talk about this, it's critical for us to help people understand that the attack on Africa resulted in the murder by Europeans of one out of every three living African on the continent of Africa. There was an estimated 600 million Africans alive at the time, and 200 million of those Africans were killed during what has been characterized as the dark days of European terror during this time frame. Africa was almost encircled by enslavers who came to attack Africa, steal our resources, steal our lives, steal our history, and what have you. So there's never been a time where the colonized people have not had to fight against a very vicious system. But what has happened over this recent period, when we see the limitations that the colonizers are faced with today, when we see how the courageous people in Palestine have stood up in a way that's reminiscent to what we saw with the people of Vietnam, who for a while carried the colonized people on their backs. They were the ones who made the most resistance at the time. Of course, we saw Haiti do the same thing, more than 100 years ago. Haiti made the biggest threat to the whole capitalist system that had ever occurred. And when the whole world economy revolved around slavery in Haiti, we saw the first successful slave revolt in history, the first workers' revolution in history. And so it was a major disruption that Haiti still is paying for, even as we have this discussion right now. So the colonial question has been always the profound question, but it's been ignored. When I say ignored, not by African people, not by Vietnamese, not by people in Venezuela, etc., but by the colonizers. But the colonizers have had the power to define what these struggles have been about. So where we are now is you mentioned the aggression against Iran. We talked about the kidnapping of the president the legitimate president of Venezuela and his wife, the first combatant. We talk about the assault on the African revolution. Immediately, we're talking about what happened on July 29th, 2022, when our homes and offices were attacked and military style, using grenades and military armored vehicles and battle geared forces who were said to be the FBI. All of this stuff happened. And this was a part of an attempt being made to maintain the status quo of colonial domination in the world, because people are striking out to try to win their freedom. Then we've seen the situation where in Somalia, this incredible terror that's being waged against our people in Minneapolis. Somebody asked the question, well, why is it so significant? We've seen 50 to 100,000 people demonstrating against this situation in Minneapolis. On one occasion, we've seen tens of thousands on other occasions demonstrating in Minneapolis, Minnesota, against the colonizers and the raids that's been waged against our people. In this instance, they call it ICE raids. But we've lived with these raids historically of whatever the iteration, whatever they call it, ICE, whether they call it the marshals, whether they call it the FBI, whether they call it the local police department, whether they call it Marines, or whether they call it National Guards. We've had to live with this forever. There's never been a time where Africans have not had to live with it. Of course, a difference in Minneapolis, and I remind everybody that Minneapolis is where George Floyd happened,
Yeah.
and where and it's paying a price for that, by the way, where we saw millions of people inspired by that uprising and under the leadership, generally speaking, of African people, and it spread globally, and it was also a signal to the potential of the resistance of African people. But Minneapolis is important for other reasons. And one, of course, is that there are at least 80 or more thousand Africans from Somalia in Minneapolis. And these Africans have been under assault for a long time. This is before the Trump administration. There was a time where they were being entrapped by the FBI, who would come up to Africans from Somalia and tell them that they were with some kind of Islamic organization, and they wanted them to give them an opportunity to go back to Somalia to fight against the Americans, because the Americans had ensconced themselves there. They had discovered something like a lake of oil under Somalia. And we had people like George Bush and William Jefferson Clinton who engaged in an attempt to take that. And people may remember Black Hawk Down when you had these U.S. Forces who intended to take it, and so many of them were killed in the process that the American population their stomachs were turned by it, and their hearts were turned by it. And so they withdrew at that time from direct confrontation in Somalia. But it's been there. And then Somalia is where? It's right there in East Africa. It's
Mhm.
right across from Yemen. You're talking about a situation where people who call Houthis are being killed in Yemen by the United States government. You're talking about control of the Red Sea route to move stolen resources, making it trying to prevent the need to circumnavigate the entire continent of Africa to get from one place to the other with stolen resources. So all of this stuff is going on. The whole world economy is affected by the struggle of colonized peoples, and we are in the middle of that struggle, and that's what we're looking at here. And in Minneapolis, of course, what makes it really important is that the Africans in Minneapolis, Minnesota, perhaps 80 or more thousand, they live in the communities where their Africanness has not been diluted by other kinds of things because they all live in the same community, the same
Wow.
cultural iteration, African iteration culture. Whereas Africans who live there, somebody said, well, we got a situation where some 30 some odd people or more have been killed in under
Mhm.
ICE attacks. Africans have been arrested, and nothing has happened until these two white people get killed. And we're talking about, of course, what is his name, Pretty, and what's her name, Good.
Good, Renee, good.
Yeah, they were killed.
Mhm.
And part of that is we welcome the solidarity because they died because the ongoing objective
Mhm.
is to encircle, is to isolate the African struggle from white people. And
Mhm.
white people are not supposed to unite with the struggle, African struggle. But another thing about it is so important
Mhm.
is that the same white people who are able to even unite with the struggle against Africa, against the attacks being made against Somalis, are not able to unite that much too often about the struggle that's waged against other Africans who are not Somalis, who they call African Americans, who they've given other kinds of names because there's a presumption here is that these are black people who are part of America, even though and just being treated badly or unfairly or something to that extent, but we're on the way becoming Americans, etc. So anyway, I just think that's part of what it is that we're looking at. And the way
Yeah.
forward is that the reason that this country can spend so much time attacking people in Somalia and so much time attacking people in Gaza and Venezuela is because they don't have to defend themselves against the colonial domination of African people, of indigenous people, including Mexicans, here within the United States. So we say that it's not healthy just to have a movement based on protesting what
Mhm.
is wrong with this situation. We have to be engaged in building what the world that we want it to be. And that's the struggle against colonialism. And that's what we have to demand of white people who love us, that it's not good enough just to protest. You have to unite with our struggle to end this relationship that we have with the colonial domination, for us to have our own black power, to have a self-governing capacity like all other people that have any implication, any indications of dignity. That's absolutely necessary. So that's the thing. That's the way forward. So join the struggle. Join, and that's why the African People's Solidarity Committee is so important because that's the determination, that's the decision that the African People's Solidarity Committee has made. It has united under the leadership of the African Revolution against colonialism. That's what it's about. It's not just a protest movement. It
Mhm.
engages in protest, but the protest that it engages in is something that is tethered to the end of colonialism and the empowerment of the self-empowerment of the African population here. So, Uhuru, comrades.
Uhuru Chairman, Uhuru, thank you so much. That is so helpful, everything that you are laying out here. And I wanted to ask you about something, that you have said in the past that this the struggle that you said racism, the struggle against racism is a self-defeating waste of time, and that you have defined, or I guess we could say deepened the question, the colonial question, by talking about and laying out politically the colonial mode of production. And I wanted you to see if you could talk about that and how that is incredibly important for white people to understand. It's not racism. It is not the ideas in white people's heads, but the entire social system that is parasitic, as you say, and it comes at the expense of African and colonized people everywhere. So if you could talk about the colonial mode of production and why white people need to understand that.
Well, first of all, I want to say that everybody who is involved in this discussion, this meeting right now, should register to come to the plenary that the African People's Socialist Party is conducting, a 3-day plenary, August 17th, 18th, and 19th.
April
April,
7th.
April, thank you, right here in St. Louis. It's going to be an extraordinarily important plenary where we'll have enough time to really discuss some of what it is that you're talking about now. But this whole thing about the struggle against racism, I think that it is the way that the system has come to explain itself. It is a part of a superstructure of a system with an economic base based on slavery and colonialism. It does not say that we've enslaved and we've colonized anybody. It just says that it explains this relationship by saying that we are wonderful and we won't allow other people to enjoy our wonderfulness. We won't allow other people to participate in being associated and wonderful with us. And this is what the struggle has to be about. It's a narcissistic kind of expression of what the whole world is supposed to be about. It's based on this narcissistic presumption that the whole world should just want to be with white people. And if we're not with white people, there's something wrong. They talk about even when I remember this whole thing around desegregating schools and what have you, and how the Supreme Court made a ruling to some point in 1954, something to the extent that African children in separate schools could not learn without the presence of the white children being in the same process, which means it's doomed Chinese and Japanese and Koreans to a state of permanent ignorance because there are no white people in the damn
Mhm.
classrooms. It's just an insult, but it's something that really the white people who love us can really fight hard to have us, be a part of them. And the whole thing is that did you invite a black person to dinner with me kind of stuff. This is the kind of stuff that was notoriously talked about in the 1950s. And would you want a black guy to marry your sister? Or this is the kind of stuff that was being talked about. It's narcissistic as hell,
Mhm.
and ridiculous. But it's easier to explain the world that way than to say what demonic forces we have been to lynch, murder, rape,
Yeah.
and do all these horrible things to African people that colonizes them, dehumanizes them, steal their culture, steal their resources. And that's something that happened then, happens every day that I'm alive right now. I see this stuff continuing to happen of the resources and dignity of African people. So the struggle against colonialism is a struggle for the power over our own lives. It removes us from this status of being beggars, either for the approval of white people or for the resources that white people presume to own for themselves. In fact, it demands that white people pay back everything they've stolen from us, which is an extraordinary kind of thing. And the African People Solidarity Committee and that movement under the leadership of the party Solidarity has taken that on. And it has gone beyond this self-satisfying, this narcissistic assumption that the best thing that any human being can do is want to be with them, be like them. That's why you hear stuff like when African people are talking about, having our own black power, our own self-government. They call it they call us separatists. And like for example, it makes an assumption that we were once all together, and now here we are trying to separate everybody. One, two, when white people engaged in this struggle to take this land from this stolen land from England, they didn't create a declaration of separation. They created a declaration of independence.
Right.
We want to be independent. We want to have control of our own lives. And that's what the anti-colonial struggle is all about. Our own power, our own capacity, and the rescue, the productive forces of African people. That is to say, the land, the capacity to produce, the human beings that do the producing, that needs to be repossessed by African people ourselves. Because as it is, our engagement in the production of life is not for Africa and African people, it's for Europe and white people. That's generally speaking what you're saying. We get some portion, some share of that. And so that's unacceptable. And we have to create a movement. And because people like to refer to this as just the black movement, it's not the black movement. It's the movement that Marx himself has said is the one. It's the pedestal upon which the whole capitalist system rests. And if you're talking about communism, socialism, you can't get there until you take this pedestal out from under the whole productive process that benefits the settlers and the colonizers at the expense of those of us who are colonized.
Right.
So we don't say that we are just a black movement. We say we are the leaders of the movement for socialism, communism, whatever you want to call it, because we are the only ones that are targeting the colonial mode of production, taking on the colonial mode of production, and in a struggle that's tethered to the creation of a new world. What do we mean? We say colonial mode of production.
Mhm.
And we're talking about for the first time that we recognize that some 600 years ago, this is a process that was initiated primarily by Portugal that started the process of kidnapping African people. Went to the Canary Islands in 1615, I think it was, 1415, I think it was, Canary Islands, and started the sugar industry there. There was no massive sugar production. Agriculture stuff that came into existence, as we've come to know it, came through existence as a consequence of African people being a labor and technology being stolen and used against us and for Europe and the development of Europe. We're talking about for the first time of the emergence of a world economy, that the entire world was connected to this process of production that came through the enslavement and forced dispersal of the African population. And so the whole world is engaged in a process of producing life. And it is a parasitic social system that around which upon which this depends. It's a parasitic social system. It's a parasite that rests upon the host of the vast majority of humanity. It sucks our resources, sucks our happiness, and things like that. And the way forward from this, by everybody who claims to hate it, is to struggle to destroy the pedestal that the social system rests upon, and that is the colonial domination of Africans and the other peoples who are colonized around the world.
Uhuru Chairman. Very powerful. You know, the thing that I just want to say to everybody, by the way, who's on here on this event tonight, that this is sponsored by the African People's Solidarity Committee, the organization of white people under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. And our job is to go into the white community to tell the truth, to organize other white people, to recognize that we are the colonizer. We are the colonizer nation, and that the place for us to be, if we want to be part of changing the world, is under the leadership of colonized African people fighting to end this colonial mode of production, this whole system, and to bring about a world in which African people have power over their lives, in which all colonized people have power over their lives, and we have the ability to join humanity, which is very powerful. And the thing that I always feel when, when you speak, Chairman, that you turn history right side up, that you always expose, just the way that this system ingrains thought process of how we see the world, what we take for granted, that, and that you just so boldly turn it right side up, that this is the world in which African people are going to be, are the leaders, it is very, very liberating and very exciting.
But
And
let me
yeah,
say in
go ahead.
relationship to that, Penny,
Yes.
the recognition of colonialism and the colonial mode of production is something that should be welcomed by white
Yes.
people
Yes.
because it is different from racism. This
Mhm.
whole construct that's been created called racism that's didn't exist before colonialism itself. It locks white people into a state of a permanent kind of situation because you cannot change your quote unquote race. You're going
Right.
to be that race forever, but you don't have to be a colonizer.
Right.
And the thing is that it should be a relief. It should let all those people who want, to fight against the injustices that's recognized in the world. And I hear them say that they recognize these injustices, and I hear them say
Mhm.
that they hate what America is doing, et cetera, et cetera. And this is a way to liberation. You don't have to be a part of that. And
Yeah.
a problem is that because Africans are identified as a race of people, then and it's difficult for people to recognize that we are a nation of people who are being oppressed and who have been exploited, who've been dispersed around the world. Because you don't hear people talking about the French race or the German race or the Spanish race or the Portuguese race. It's the Africans. And the characterization of race is not only just a phony construct that comes around with colonialism, but it liquidates the national identity of African people.
Yeah.
And this is something that complicates an understanding about people. That's why you can talk about, for example, Africans from Somalia in Seattle, and can have a different response, see a different response given to the struggles of Africans from Somalia, because at least the concept of Somalia, the place of Somalia, presupposes a national existence. Whereas black people who live in the same city, other Africans who live in the same city, but are characterized as African Americans, don't have an identity. Don't
Right.
have an identity. And so what
Right.
has to happen is that we have to really, I don't think we can be namby-pamby, wishy-washy on this question. I
Mhm.
don't think we can be wishy-washy on the question of the absolute requirement of white people who call themselves communists, who call themselves people who love us, is to center the struggle that they're involved in. If you don't like what's happening in the world, it ain't enough to protest it only, just to
Yes.
protest it. What has to happen is that you have to unite with the struggle against colonialism inside the United States. And this gives the colonizers here something, the colonial powers here have to be should be preoccupied with having to deal with you, like they had to deal with Penny Hess and Jesse Neville on July 29th, 2022. have to deal with you as white people who are engaged in the struggle against colonialism right here. And should be the preoccupation, but it's not a preoccupation because the only thing, generally speaking, they're going to get is a demonstration, a protest. They don't like some bad thing that might have happened to African people, and they are opposed to fascism or authoritarianism or some other generic term that they can use to obscure the reality that African people are the ones who are catching hell, and that is happening on indigenous land, whether
Yes.
it's the recently stolen land from Mexico or whether it's the traditional land of the indigenous people that they renamed America, the Americas.
Hmm.
This has to happen. And I think we have to be dogmatic on this question. That this is what you have to do. You have to participate in this struggle right now. If you want to stop what's happening in Palestine, make it necessary for the colonizers to have to be preoccupied right here fighting against the colonial domination of Africans, indigenous people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Chairman, that is so powerful. And I mean, I unite, and that is the struggle. That is what white people have to do. That is the absolute necessity. And I wanted to, one of the things, a couple of things that I wanted to raise is one, that just for, in my experience of being under the leadership of the party, under your leadership for many, many years, that it has forced me and us to really, first of all, look at the reality of what white people have done, the complicity. And I do think that we don't have to stay there. We can overturn, or we can make a principled self-criticism for our past, but we do have to take responsibility. And that is the essence of why white people owe reparations to African people. We've stolen the resources, and we've done it in the most violent and vicious way. And I think that, one of the things that I have experienced in being an APSC is to really, come to terms with the lies, the self promotion that white people, you know, take on to sort of put ourselves forward as the rational ones, the ones that, just white superiority, it's just another form of that. And but that's still the dominant, question or stance. And, but yet when we look at the truth about what white people have done, the most, vicious, violent, hideous, unspeakable acts towards African people and the people on the planet Earth without a thought, just ingrained in white society, that we have to then, come to terms with that. We have to tell the truth about that. And we have to say that we can't, we can't just all get along now. We have to make our reparations. We have to pay the price so we can go forward. And I think that that is really powerful about the African People Solidarity Committee, because it's the opportunity where we can do that. And the question of reparations is central to what APSC is and about. And I wanted to see, first of all, if you could talk about reparations, that you have been the leading force in popularizing the demand for reparations to African people, going all the way back to the late 70s and early 80s, and the party's tribunal on reparations to African people held in 1982, which was so profound and world changing at that time and still is. Um, can you talk about the question of reparations?
I'm glad you raised that. I think that the African People's Socialist Party is the only organization other than Cali House. Cali House, I think by 1950, no, not no 1915, I think she was imprisoned by the United States because she started a reparations movement right after slavery. She literally hundreds of thousands of African people were members of this reparations organization, hundreds of thousands.
That's
And
profound.
that
Yeah.
it is profound. And she was imprisoned. The
Mhm.
US government put her in prison.
Wow.
And, but we are the only force that, other than Callie House, who really built a movement, a mass movement, making the reparations issue something, putting it in the possession of the masses of African people, and not relying solely or even primarily on some state entity, some government, or some quirk in the law to make reparations happen for us. We have said that reparations is a splendid opportunity for white people who have taken our inheritance, the inheritance of all the labor and all the resources, the genius of African people that's gone to satisfy you. You have that. And it's a splendid opportunity for making a self-criticism to the African community. This is the basis of unity. Unity, as Che Guevara says, not just a matter of well-wishing, it's sharing the same fate, whether in victory or in death. And that's what the solidarity movement has done. That's why it's absolutely necessary for us to call on white people who love us, who really are interested in changing the world, to join the solidarity movement under our leadership. And I say this without any hesitation at all. And so I think that's important. The other thing related to that is the work that we do with the Black Power Blueprint under the leadership of the deputy chair of the African People's Socialist Party. It's extraordinary work where
Yes.
we've seen actually concrete development occur in areas where our communities are being gentrified by white hustlers. Many of them barely more than working class white people in pickup trucks and clipboards ride through our community and get addresses, and they have the cooperation of of local governments all around this country. You will, and I'm talking the United States now, you will see African people losing their properties, our properties. And in Brooklyn, the whole theft of deed theft, black people losing the property.
Mhm.
Here in St. Louis, this LRA, this
Mhm.
land bank that they've created and take ostensibly to cure blight, did this in the 1970s. The first so-called land bank in the world, in this country, was created right here in St. Louis, and it's to cure blight, they said. But they take black people's properties for taxes. They take it for liens because you have older people who can't take care of the code violations and things like that. And then these properties end up in the possession of the so-called white developers, thousands of properties. And of course, what we've finally seen here in St. Louis is something like 2,000 acres of land, right 8-minute drive from the Uhuru House to create the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency that participates in killing the people and making what happened in Venezuela successful to a point, and making what's happening in Palestine and other places happen, and even killing Russians in Moscow through missiles and things like that.
Mhm.
And at some juncture, one would presume that Moscow would strike back, or somebody with the capacity would strike back. And where are they going to strike back? They're going to hit that entity, and that entity has been created, dropped right in the middle of the African community.
Yeah.
The one problem that they all have is that we are developing the Black Power Blueprint, that we are resurrecting a community that has been left for dead, that's been and we've had to fight tooth and nail to do this under the leadership of the deputy chair, Onizene Shatella, to make this happen. We had to fight mayors. We've had to fight alderpersons who have called on the National Guards to become to oppress the communities, people in their wards and things like that. We've had to go up against all of that, and we've done it up to now quite successful. So the reparations issue,
Yeah. Yeah.
much of what we are talking about, white people have voluntarily, this is part of the work that the African People's Solidarity Committee, our Solidarity Movement has done, is bring white people, settlers, voluntarily into a process of paying reparations to African people that goes actually into development. It's a counter, it's something that goes against pushing African people out to the community, out of our community, and it's drawing African people back into the community. People who had thought they had lost stuff now, many instances on the in the West Florissant corridor have coming back to the community because we've been redeveloping. Of course, we just saw that they've used this tornado that just come through as another instrument that they can use to gentrify the community, to push African people out, and hundreds of Africans have been pushed out just through the tornado. But we are working on that, and this is the work that we do, and this is the reparations work, and this is the what we're doing with the reparations investment company, selling people that you can invest in the future. Invest in freedom, invest in liberation, not gentrification. Invest in liberation, not gentrification. And so that's the kind of thing that's happening here with the reparations investment company. People can invest in these properties that's being acquired, and now it's extraordinary to think about it because you see all these properties leaving the African community in our possession by so-called investments that these speculators come in and they steal our properties and they let them deteriorate so that the community finds it difficult and undesirable to even live in the community anymore. The property values go down in that area, and then these speculators come and take the properties over, flip the over, etc., make a whole bunch of money, and then continue the process of pushing us out.
Yes.
So we reversed that. That's
Yeah.
what the whole reparations investment corporation is. Nobody's seen any stuff like this happen other than
Never.
the of a working class revolutionary party. And
Yeah.
that's also the significance of the African People's Solidarity Committee, why people ought to join it, why people ought to support the reparations investment company and the other kinds of projects that we've created to negate the capacity and power of colonialism in our communities.
Uhuru. Well, first of all, I do want to say to everybody on this, this event, please, if you have questions, please put them in the chat and, we'll be able to talk to, ask them to Chairman Omali Shatella in a little bit later. But I really, this situation, this Black Power, the Black Power Blueprint, coordinated by Deputy Chair Ona Zanea Shatella, is nobody, I mean, people have to come here. If you have not been to St. Louis, we're putting on tours of this because there is no place like it. All over the
Register
country.
for the plenary.
Yes, register for the plenary. Yes, absolutely. That is the time to come. April, is it 17th and 18th or 16th and 17th
17th, 18th, and 19th. It's
and
3
19th? April 17th, 18th, and 19th. It's going to be incredible. It's going to be incredible. It's 3 days of the major summation event and planning event for the upcoming period of the African People's Socialist Party. But there will be tours, I'm sure, of all of these incredible properties being being just totally transformed by the office and leadership of Deputy Chair Ona Zanea Shatella. And, all over the country, this gentrification, there's no city that you can go into. I think that there's something very, very intensified by the way the city of St. Louis does this because it's based on a history of attacking power for African people for the last 150 years. But all over the country, there's gentrification. There's taking the African community away and, putting it to be expensive homes for white people, et cetera. But this is the only place in the US and probably in the world where, like the chairman is saying, that African people, African workers are taking this land and turning it back to an African community led by and for the African working class. And it is absolutely beautiful, beautiful, exquisite, unlike anything. There's these farms, the Shambhala Uhuru farm, but many other cultivation of of crops, of, food for the African community. It's amazing. And Chairman, can you just say, more about that to, just all of the incredible work that is happening there on around the Uhuru House in particular in North
Well,
St. Louis.
first of all, what I want to say is that we are not simply the African working class. We are its advanced detachment. We
Uhuru.
are the African People's Socialist Party. We are the general staff of the African working class, the workers. We are
Mm.
that advanced detachment that provides the leadership for the class. Sometimes the class is battered and beaten up and incapable as a class of looking out the best way possible for its own interests. That's why it has to have its own party. Just like the ruling class has its own party. Just like you would find in the ruling class, sometimes lunatics who are part of the ruling class, bedwetters, wife beaters, people who hang out at private molestation islands for very rich people. They are all part of the ruling class, and they don't even have to have know anything about what's happening in Venezuela or any other place, but their party does. Their party is the advanced attachment. It looks out for their interests, whether they are bedwetters or, again, people who just hang out with Jeffrey Epstein, etc. The party looks out for them. And the African People's Socialist Party plays the same role for the African working class. And at different times, the oppressor succeeds in dumping drugs and things into our community, poisoning our community, undermining it in a very serious kinds of way. And so the working class as a whole can't necessarily look out for its interests, but the party does. Its advanced attachment always looks out for its interests, always advances its interests. It has a platform of a 14-point platform. It has things like political reports that guides its action. It gives the working class the only democratic opportunity it has to say, this is what we believe, this is what we want, and to pass resolutions. They can't do that with the Democratic Party. They can't do that with the Republican Party. They can't do that with the Green Party or any other kinds of party like that, but they can do it with their own party. And right now, we're moving toward this plenary. The next 2 months between now and April 17th, people are going to be studying the main resolution. Our understanding of the whole world, this is how we understand it and our place in it. Have an opportunity to make resolutions of their own, to introduce, to try and shape the world that we want to have, and also bring people into the process right here in St. Louis that we've been talking about and around the world, not just in St. Louis. Because even while we're talking about the the gardens and right here in St. Louis, we have gardens in Pumalaka, in South Africa. We're doing the same thing. We
Yeah,
are bringing this kind of struggle to negate the power of the colonizers and assume control over our own lives as a class through the revolutionary organization of the African People's Socialist Party. And so I wanted to say those things, and I think it's really important because we're not just the class; we are its advanced attachment.
yes.
We are its advanced attachment. We are the general staff. That's what this incredible stuff that you see happening coming from the deputy chair. I mean, this it's mind-boggling. People need to come to St. Louis to experience it, to see what it is, because just to hear me talking about it is not enough. And
Yeah.
then our lawyers, we had lawyers, great lawyers who defended us in the trial that we've just come through. And when we started this process, legal process of getting lawyers, I said I wanted to know if the lawyers believed that we were innocent of what we were charged with. And my reason for asking that question, because they were not going to be our lawyers if they believed that we were guilty of being Russian agents and working for the African community. And so they gave lawyerly kinds of answers, et cetera, et cetera. And then they came to St. Louis and they saw it.
Yeah, they did.
Now we see why you got attacked. Now we see why you got attacked.
Yes,
And
yes,
so we want you and everybody. So register for the plenary and come to St. Louis. And you
yes.
asked me a question that I have not answered or not responded to.
No,
Yeah.
I just wanted, but I do want to say everybody should go to APSP Plenary, PLENARY.org, APSPplenary.org to register for the plenary that has its own website, Friday to Sunday, April 17th to the 19th, 2026. And it will change your life if you have not been to something like that before. This is the leadership, the vanguard, what the chairman is saying, the advanced detachment. Um,
We're
that's
constructing the
just,
future.
yeah, constructing the future, making the world that
Yes.
people can live in, that people can actually live in,
Yes. Yes.
and very, very, very powerful. And so, Chairman, it's very exciting to have you here today. And yes, I had wanted to ask you about the Black Power Blueprint, and thank you for laying that out. And, we've talked about just the period, this incredible period we're in, and how you and the party have played such a role in bringing about the world that this is, that we see today, the resistance, the colonial struggle, and that you have always fought this. You have been to spoken at Oxford University. People can see that on YouTube. The incredible, brilliant presentation, 2019, I believe it was, and you you started out by saluting the struggle in Venezuela. Just how you have, I would say, a powerful experience of being under the leadership of the African Revolution is the sense of the connection to the entire world that you've always said that, that white people have self-imposed isolation from the rest of the world, but being in solidarity under the leadership of the party, which is so enmeshed in and part of the world and changing the world and has relationships with revolutionary forces throughout South America and Africa and Europe and of course on the continent of Africa under the leadership of the party. It's the world, as you recently said, the world has become a very small place. And it is very, very exciting and liberating for white people to, to see what the world means without colonialism when African people have power and, what humanity means, how every single thing from school to housing to healthcare to, gardens and the way the world is and the environment, every single thing can only flourish without this system under the leadership, of African people.
May
And
I, may I
yeah, go
just, I
ahead,
want
sir.
to say this
Yes,
final
Chairman.
thing, that there's a tremendous amount of resistance trying to occur throughout the world to the current regime here in the United States. And, and part of this discussion was saying something to the effect that they had dropped the, the probation. They didn't drop it. We took it. We
Yeah,
fought like hell all down the
fought
road.
it.
We
Yeah,
fought all down the line. We
yes,
never we
yes,
we never did not fight.
that's right.
And I think it's really important because that's what we see happening increasingly right now. And perhaps everybody who's fighting doesn't have the correct line and not fighting in a way that what they are doing is tethered to what end.
Mhm.
But as long as we and what we do is tethered to a to what end, we can step into those situations as doors are opened and and resistance initiated that captivates the imagination and the interests of masses of people, it's our responsibility to provide the leadership beyond that. And that's what's happening. And I think it's really important when we look at Venezuela. I mean, thousands of people are in the streets right now. And yes, the Venezuela is going to make some deals if they can with the United States in terms of the petroleum and stuff like that. They've stolen, the U.S. has stolen so much. They've got warships and guns and a real capacity for violence that's absolutely necessary for them to maintain control that they think of the world as it is. Uh, So, but to see the people rising up again, look at Minnesota, and it's not over. I'm not suggesting it's over. I'm not even suggesting it's over with our case. But the fact is that we filed a motion, our lawyers did, that to terminate for early termination after 1 year of the 3 year probation period. We filed a motion for early termination of the probation,
Yes.
and the prosecutor said no, that there should be no early termination. It's the same prosecution that had asked for $500,000 on each of us in terms of bonds of no a punishment, that had asked for 15-year prison sentences for each of us, and we went to court to fight, and people who who knew things. They're telling us you shouldn't say anything. You just go to court and, because if you say something, they're going to use it against you. Hell, we hadn't said anything and they were using it against us up to this point. So how is saying something going to change
Yeah.
that negatively for us? And we fought it all down the line. And then when this crazy verdict came out that found us not guilty of being Russian agent, registered to be Russian agents, but then found us guilty of conspiring to not register as Russian agents. And that's what we were sentenced for. And it's extraordinary. We fought it. And,
Yes.
and it's the judge, and even in his response, because almost immediately when we filed, and as soon as the prosecutors had reached that point where the judge had said he needed a response, as soon as that happened, he said, it's over. Prosecution said we were a danger. We were some kind of security threat. And the
Right.
judge said, well, if the foreign nationalists, talking about the Russians, had been involved in saying, maybe you could make that argument. He said, but these people are not, they're not a threat to themselves. They're not a threat to anybody. And so that ended the probation. And so that was a remarkable victory. And I
Yes, it
see we
was.
seeing victories other places, because even among the settlers, and we find people who don't like, everybody doesn't agree with how the settler state is operating right now. It's stepping on a lot of toes, etc. And even judges. Some judges don't like what the FBI is doing, what the State Department is doing, etc. There have been members who quit the FBI and quit the Justice Department
Yeah.
based on what's happened right there in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
So, but none of this would happen if the people don't struggle. If we hadn't struggled, none of these issues that we're talking about would have surfaced. It's struggle that makes the difference. So, and
Chairman, your
you
leadership.
comrades, all of you. I mean, we had 1,600 letters,
Yes.
references. Each of us. Well, some of well, I think collectively, right? Was it 1,600 collectively?
Well, I think it was collectively. That's
Yeah.
really amazing. They've
So
never seen anything like it.
yeah, and that's you. That's you out there, and that's your friends
Yes.
and family
Yes.
members, etc. And that's the people being involved in this process, and the people cannot be crushed like that. The people standing up and moving in the direction of progress are invincible. So
Chairman, this has been so powerful. And I know that they're telling me we're going on to the next part of this agenda, but we'll be back for if people have questions for the chairman in a few minutes. This is, I can't thank you enough, Chairman. This has been really, really perfect for us to be able to enter into this period and really grasp it. And I really appreciate you and everyone who is on to experience this tonight. Thank you so much. And I know that, you know, the resistance that you're talking about in the leadership, of course, happened, you know, immediately after the raids on July 29, 2022, when you called a press conference on your front lawn about an hour or less after they left. And it's just been brilliant. You know, you have pushed back the state and I mean, it's powerful, Chairman. Your leadership is.
You're frozen, Penny. Maybe I'm the
See,
only one who
pardon
has.
me?
Okay.
What did you
You were
say, Chairman?
frozen. You were frozen for a while.
Oh, was I? Okay, well, am I still?
No, you're not frozen now.
Okay. It might be if I were outside, but I'm not. Okay, so
Ah, good one, Penny. Good one.
all right. I'm going back to the MC. I think that's Kara, Comrade Kara.
And
Uhuru.
then Carol, we just telling people to join APSC.
Yeah,
Join.
yes, absolutely.
Donate to the center and support Black Power Blueprint and
Uhuru.
come to the plenary. Uhuru.
Come to the plenary, see St. Louis, see what's going on here. It is incredible. Uhuru. All right,
Uhuru.
Comrade Kara.
Uhuru, yes, it is incredible. Everyone needs to go to St. Louis to see it. Thank you so much, Chairwoman Penny Hess and Chairman Omali Yeshitela. That was a profound discussion. And thank you for bringing this understanding and, most importantly, the science that explains why this world is the way it is today. So, next, I want to bring up the Huru Solidarity Movement Chair, Jesse Neville, and he's going to talk to us about the new initiative called the Reparations Investment Company. Uhuru, Jesse.
Uhuru Kara.
Uhuru.
Uhuru. We can bring up the slides and get started. Wow, that was an amazing, amazing discussion with Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Chairwoman Penny Hess. This has been a powerful event. Just want to express my unity with everything that's been stated up to this point. And, just appreciate everything the chairman said, in particular, the way that the chairman laid the basis for our understanding of the significance of this project that I have the honor to be talking to you about right now, the Reparations Investment Company. The chairman talked about the fact that, typically when you hear the words investment and real estate and the North Side, you're hearing the story of gentrification and the colonial extraction of wealth from African people. But this is the reversal of that. This is the negation of that. This is a bold, transformative new initiative emerging in North St. Louis that is creating renovation that contends with gentrification, renovation that negates gentrification. And we from the African People's Solidarity Committee and Uhuru Solidarity Movement are very honored to be very much involved in building this new campaign, which is the latest expansion of the Black Power Blueprint, led by African People's Education and Defense Fund Board President Onezene Yeshitela, to build independent political and economic power in the hands of the African community. And we want to salute the visionary leadership of our chairman, Omali Yeshitela, who we just heard from, the leader who made reparations a household word, going back to 1982 with the first tribunal, World Tribunal on Reparations to African People in Brooklyn, New York. And ever since then, the chairman has been making this goal a reality. And as the chairman has said tonight and many other times, we are being called upon by this period to go beyond protest, to do more than just protest the world as it is, as the chairman says, but to be involved in building the world that we want to live in. That's what the Reparations Investment Company is all about. And I want to salute again Deputy Chair Ona Zane-Yeshitela, the brilliant architect of the Black Power Blueprint and the innovator of the Reparations Investment Company, which is an extension of the work Deputy Chair has been leading for years to build the independent anti-colonial African economy. And salute to Chairwoman Penny Hess and the African People's Solidarity Committee. And I am very proud to be a member of APSC and to be celebrating 50 years of white solidarity with Black power since the founding of APSC in 1976, carrying out a strategic front inside the white community of the party's work to make reparations a household word and a household reality. So what is the Reparations Investment Company? Our mission, the RIC mission, is to acquire, renovate, and stabilize distressed housing and community assets in North St. Louis, the reclaiming of development in the hands of African people who have lived in the community for generations, producing genuine community-driven revitalization as a positive alternative to gentrification. The problem that RIC was created to address is the problem of gentrification, which is the problem of colonialism, the fact that the history of the African community of North St. Louis, a once thriving community, is a history of unending struggle by African people for power and economic life in the face of one attack after another. North St. Louis has been targeted for decades by deliberate policies of disinvestment, predatory one-sided development, and a system designed to keep the Black community locked out of economic power. And whenever we hear the word revitalization, most of the time, it's another word for raising housing costs, pushing African people out, and transferring land and wealth into outside hands. The result is a cycle of displacement and extraction where development happens at the expense of the African community and not under its leadership. And so the solution that the Uhuru movement has been implementing in North St. Louis for almost 10 years now is Black power, African self-determination. The Reparations Investment Company is designed to intervene directly in that cycle by building a reparations-driven model of community development that restores and improves the housing stock on the north side without displacement, that anchors neighborhood stability through strategic renovation and stewardship, that expands Black community control over land, housing, and economic life, and builds a replicable model of reparations and justice-led development. And the Reparations Investment Company is aligned within the Black Power Blueprint's broader community development work that has been going on since 2017 when it was first launched. And since then, it has been transforming the North Side through African self-determination, acquiring abandoned, dilapidated buildings, and initiating a rapid process of restoration or demolition and reallocating of land to create community-generated self-reliance programs that uplift the residents and engage them socially, politically, and economically in the future of their community. So this has included the Uhuru House, the Black Power Vanguard's basketball court, Shambhala Uhuru Farms, One Africa, One Nation Farmers Market, the Uhuru Bakery and Cafe, the African Independence Workforce Program, and so much more. So RIC is a direct answer to the question, what does reparations look like on the ground? It looks like restored homes, stabilized neighborhoods, and a community building power through ownership and development under its own leadership. St. Louis is becoming and will become a model city of reparations and justice. So these two, by the way, let's go back one slide real quick. These two properties that you see here are the first two main projects of I think we're trying to go back, of the Reparations Investment Company. A beautiful future home for sale, which is on the right there, and on the left is what will be a fourplex housing apartment rental units, which is also going to be very, very beautiful. And these are the first two major renovations projects that you can support through the Reparations Investment Company. So next two slides, we just have some quick 10-second videos to show you Angel and Eliad Constructions, who thanks to support from our reparations investors and donors, has been out completing in the past month the installation of a new roof on one of those properties. So you can just take a look there. If we can play that video. This is Angel's crew working on this property. And this was, of course, this was a few weeks ago before the big snowstorm. And if you go to the next slide, you can see just a little bit more of the work happening there, that particular property. And we go to the next slide. So again, these are the two main projects. There we go. So this is the current renovation pipeline for the Reparations Investment Company. The active projects of RIC include this multi-unit development for long-term rental housing. If you go to the next slide, you can just see some of what it looks like inside right now. And then going to the next slide, you can see a vision for what these apartments will look like once they are fully renovated and ready to be available for rent in the community. And if you go to the next slide, and then this is another, the other property that you just saw the roof work being done on. It's a beautiful property that's being renovated as a future home for sale. That shows how this project is focusing on restoring properties to safe, high quality, move-in ready standards while preserving affordability. So the way that the Reparations Investment Company works, we're very excited to announce this publicly here, is that the RIC offers a fixed return investment opportunity designed to support neighborhood renovation and community-led development. And the Reparations Investment Company's assets are these real estate properties that are being developed. And you can become an investor with a minimum investment of $2,500 for at least 1 year. That's the minimum investment period. And the interest rate for the investments is 7.5%. And every investment has an exponential impact, contributing not only to the renovation of these properties and the development of the North Side under the leadership of the African community, but contributing towards the ability for resources to be generated that go back into the work of the Black Power Blueprint and fund the overall movement for African economic self-reliance. If you're interested in joining the growing network of reparations investors, you can email us at info@uhurusolidarity.org. The funds from the Reparations Investment Company are used for property acquisition and holding, renovation and construction, project management and operations, scaling and reinvestment, and several exciting new spin-off businesses that Deputy Chair and the Black Power Blueprint are putting into motion as we speak that will spin off of the work of the RIC. And if you're not in St. Louis, wherever you're located, you can be involved, and we call on you to get involved in the Reparations Investment Company. If you're here in St. Louis or if you're anywhere else, you can become an investor, you can become a donor, you can volunteer, you can come out and participate in actually helping to paint and sand and clean up and do all kinds of on-the-ground work with volunteer days at these properties. You can join the team to donate in-kind materials, or if you own a business, you can donate in-kind materials, and you can join one of our teams that is building this campaign. If you do graphic design, if you do video editing, if you're a writer, if you do media work, if you want to write press releases, work on our website, work on our brochures and literature and events and donor promotions, we need you to join the work of the Reparations Investment Company. And last but not least, we will be having a national open meeting, which is named after a beautiful quote from the chairman, "A New World Under Construction," on building the Reparations Investment Company on Sunday, February 22nd at 12 p.m. Central. So we'll be sending out more information about that in the coming days. And I want to thank the chairman, deputy chair, Chairwoman Penny, and all of you on this powerful program tonight, and just end with this brief clip that really says it all from Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Uhuru.
You didn't have anything to do with it. I didn't have anything to do with it. Slavery is both our legacies. It's mine and it's yours. You inherited the wealth of slavery, and I inherited the poverty of slavery. I am determined to change this legacy that's been left up to me. If you don't change yours for yourself, I'm going to change yours too. So it's best for you to join this one and both of us.
Uhuru. Unity through reparations.
Uhuru, uhuru. That was great. Thank you, Jesse, for that incredible presentation. And it's just so exciting to see the amazing work happening every day in the Reparations Investment Company. So we will be going to Q&A shortly. And this is a reminder to please submit questions in Zoom or on the Q&A feature or in YouTube or Facebook chat. And before that, I want to take a few minutes to tell you how you can get involved in solidarity with African people's struggle for liberation and support this work that you just saw today. The most important thing we can do to stand with all oppressed people is to join under the leadership of the African Revolution. That is what APSC was created to do. So, we have a goal to raise at least $500 today for the Uhuru Solidarity Center in St. Louis. And that means you can go to apscuhuru.org/donate. And right now, I just want to announce that people have been contributing, and we have raised $210 so far, which is incredible. And we only have $290 left to reach our goal. So I'd like to read the names of some of the people who have donated. And I'd like to shout out Lisa for her $100, Vito, $25, Becky, $25, Allie, $50, Sandra, $10, and Jesse, $25. And you can go ahead and put me down for $50. So I think that changes our total.
Uhuru, you can put me down. This is Penny for 50 as well.
All right. Excellent. Penny for 50. So if somebody could do the math for me, because I can't do it in my head, that would be great. So just know that these funds that we raise in the APSC events go to the expenses of the Huru Solidarity Center in St. Louis, which is a building owned by the African People's Socialist Party that APSC is responsible to develop and to promote as we build the movement for white people's reparations to the African community of St. Louis and beyond. It is the headquarters for the African People's Solidarity Committee in the U.S. and around the world. Oh, and thank you for those of you who did the math. We are at 335 total raised so far, and we only have $165 remaining. That's incredible. Great work, everyone. Okay, so now we have a presentation to show you, and on this is the African People's Solidarity Committee, and it's unique in that it is the strategic front of the African liberation movement behind enemy lines in the white community, led by the African People's Socialist Party, founded in 1976. Next slide. This is the mass organization of APSC is called the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, and it has members in 130 cities in the US and Canada. Next slide. APSC is a cadre organization, meaning we adhere to African internationalism, the worldview of the African People's Socialist Party, which is a worldview to change the world, not just analyze it. It is a theory that demands practice. Next slide. Here you see the national headquarters of the APSC and USM. And this is the Uhuru Solidarity Center at 2654 Gravois Avenue in St. Louis, Missouri. Next slide. It's an important space from which we organize campaigns like the annual Days of Reparations campaign, as well as teach-ins, outreach, actions, and the reparations work APSC and USM carry out. Here you see a photo from the March of Reparations held in St. Louis this past fall. Okay, next slide. The main work of APSC and USM is reparations. That means returning stolen resources to the programs of the party, building political and economic power to the African working class, including the Black Power Blueprint, which you see some of the institutions of the Black Power Blueprint right in front of you. Next slide. And the Uhuru houses, Uhuru Foods and Black Power 96.3 FM radio, and the Burning Spear newspaper. Next slide. We are so excited for the upcoming opening of the Uhuru Bakery and Cafe in St. Louis. That is part of the Black Power Blueprint. Here you see a photo from when volunteers helped paint the building. And the one in the right is from during the holiday pie campaign. Next slide. Another critical front of all the work under the leadership of the party is the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa campaign that is pushing back the state attacks on the African liberation movement and leading the struggle for anti-colonial free speech. So the Uhuru Solidarity Center is a vital resource for people from the white community in St. Louis to come together to plan and organize events, as well as community outreach and fundraisers for reparations and solidarity with the Black liberation movement. We want to call on you to contribute to the work of APSC and this center. Again, you can go to apscuhuru.org/donate. You can make a one-time contribution or become a monthly sustainer like Michael, Virginia, and Leah, and others who give every month. Okay, it looks like we have some more people who donated. And I believe, like I said, we have 385 raised. Oh, we have a new total, 385 raised and only $115 remaining. And we can shout out Ruby and Brendan and Maureen for those pledges. Great. So thank you for everyone who has donated and pledged so far. Again, donate at apscuhuru.org/donate. And let's just keep going. We want to reach this goal. We only have $115 left. We will keep announcing new contributions throughout the rest of this program, but please keep donating. Remember, apscuhuru.org/donate. Okay, now I would love to bring Penny back up. Penny?
Uhuru, Tara, thank you so much for those beautiful slides and just presenting what it means to become a member. And it makes you want to do it because this is such a dynamic movement. This, as we said, to be a member of the African People's Solidarity Committee lets us as white people be connected to the African community and to the world in a principled way through a stand of reparations to African people, recognizing that the system that we live in is built on the enslavement and colonization of African people, on the genocide of the indigenous people, and on colonialism around the world, and that we can rectify that under the leadership of the African Revolution. So it's really, really important to take action if you unite with Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the discussion and the understanding of the world that we heard tonight that was so compelling, that we have to actually do something about it. I think somebody said it. This is a theory of practice. When you understand African internationalism, you have to do something. You have to become a member. And that we're calling on everybody to do that. You can go to apscuhuru.org/join, and there's a form you can fill out. And somebody from our membership office will contact you within 24 hours. They'll talk to you. They'll probably invite you to come on down to St. Louis if you're not here, and to meet us and to see us, to register for the party's plenary in April as an opportunity to do that and to find out more about the African People's Socialist Party and to be able to see, the Black Power blueprint that we talked about earlier. A new member goes through a process of political education so you can understand the political worldview of the African Liberation Movement and the African People's Socialist Party, which, as we said, turns the world right side up. And it also shows you how we can get to work. You can be part of renovating these incredible buildings that represent the ability of African people to have property and power in the African community here in St. Louis, and that that we can win other people. We have to build organization, and we need to win millions of dollars in reparations to return the stolen resources to, as the chairman said, for African people to build the African Revolution and have the resources of Africa that have been looted and stolen for our benefit at the expense of African people for 600 years. So, currently we're building a strong, powerful movement of white solidarity with Black power under the leadership of the party. You can be part of this. This is the time. Join, go to apscuhuru.org/join Uhuru.
Uhuru, Uhuru. Thank you, Chairwoman Penny. Incredible. So guess what, everyone? We surpassed our goal. We are now at $535 total raised. That is incredible. Thank you for all of your efforts.
And I
And I
see
want to,
chairman and deputy chair gave $100.
yes, yes,
And Indigo gave 25.
yes,
Powerful. Thank you to everybody that gave.
yes,
This is
amazing.
so important. Really, really appreciate and salute you, Uhuru.
Uhuru. So now we are going to move into the Q&A portion. So as we head into our Q&A, I just want to recognize where we have people tuning in from. And thank you to our chat moderators for
Uh-oh. Uhuru, can anybody hear me?
Uhuru,
Yes,
yeah.
I think, Kara was having some internet issues, so she gave me a heads up that it might be needed for some backup on the emceeing. So
Okay.
we'll
All right,
hopefully
Lisa.
Kara can join us. I'm Lisa. I'm a member of APSC here in Minneapolis, and so I just want to say thank you to the
Uhuru.
chairman and to Chairwoman Penny and Chair Jesse for your words tonight. It's so helpful as we do our work here. And I'm just gonna stop Kara's video. Hopefully that will, well, it's still showing, but anyway, I know she was gonna facilitate the Q&A. So just want to shout out where people are tuning in from. So we have Anne that's tuning in from Ecuador, and also people tuning in from Columbus, Ohio, in Florida, St. Louis, Gainesville, Florida, Maryland, Oakland, California, Louisville, Kentucky, St. Louis. Okay, so we're duplicating. It's different platforms here. Collegeville, PA, and St. Pete, Florida, and Arizona as well. So just thank you everyone for tuning in from all over. So I see one question here from the Burning Spear on YouTube. It says, Uhuru, Chairman, can you explain any further about how the party's economic work is revolutionary and not reformist or charity, and also how the party's approach to the reparations demand is distinguished from some others? So let's see if the chairman, if you're able to come back on.
Uhuru. Thank you.
Uhuru.
Thank you very much. I just want to say that from the very beginning, uh, when we seriously began the process of undertaking the reparations work, we had to go up against how the reparation issue had already been defined by people who were engaged in raising the question. Usually, these were individuals, two or three people at sometimes, and they were doing things like trying to get court cases filed. They were trying to get legislation. Ultimately, they got a congressman out of Detroit to put forward a House resolution, H.R. 40, I think it was called, and that did not call for reparation, called for a study to of the reparations issue, whether reparations would do us, and most of the discussion was about again reparations for slavery. And we felt like that was, really not dealing with the issue that reparations are due not just for slave labor, but for all kinds of stuff. For example, African people in the United States at the time had a lifespan of something like 6 or 7 years less than white people. That's stolen life that we were talking about, and there's no way to, and so that's part of it. You had a situation where African people. But Social Security was granted to people when they were 65 years old, and the average lifespan of African male was like 62. So I mean, that was those are the resources that were taken. Then there was the difference in the income of African people. So they sometimes were doing the same jobs, et cetera. That's stolen value. There's all kinds of stuff. There's genius that's stolen. There's, so and then there's violence that's imposed on people. So we say that has to be included. Reparations is due for something that just happened 2 minutes ago. It's not just something that happened back then during slavery, one. Two, reparations also has to be a function of the revolution. It has to be something that is connected to the process of African people having our freedom, our independence, et cetera. And because of that, we put the U.S. government on trial. And actually, in 1982, had the first World Tribunal on Reparations right there in Brooklyn, New York, where the first time in history we had an actual quantification of the amount of value that was owed to Black people just in labor alone. So this is part of what distinguished the way we dealt with the reparations issue. And the issue about the tribunal, twofold. One, it was something that, again, took the reparations issue to masses of people, saying that the people have to be brought and made fundamental to this discussion. And two, the tribunal was an institution of that promised that was connected to the question of state power. So you have a trial that's an instrument of the state to do that, and we initiated the process to make that happen. So those are some of the things that we did around the question of reparations and why it was different in what had been happening with the reparations question up to then. Like I said earlier, Callie House is the only one who had built mass organizations to fight for the issue of reparations, and they sent her to prison. And she had hundreds. This is not an exaggeration. This is not hyperbole. She had hundreds of thousands of Africans who had registered as part of the reparations movement, that organization that she had built. So that's part of what it is that helped to distinguish what we were talking about. And then what we've done is we have actually used reparations that we have been winning. This kind of meeting and the APSC and the Solidarity Movement contributed mightily to this. And we have used the reparations that we have been winning to actually initiate process of development. It's not just money that's going to salaries for people or anything like that or income, we've actually, and people can see the development. That's one of the reasons we want people to come to St. Louis, so that you can actually see what it is that has been created as a consequence of this. So and we also have not just attempted to raise development in competition, more or less, with other capitalist entities. We don't have the kind of resources that Walmart has. We don't have the kind of resources that the major corporations have. But and there are some African groups that have a lot of money and a lot of resources that they build things with, restaurants and factories maybe, but they're not tied to the question of national liberation. They're not tied to a movement where we recognize that the political and the economic are one, that politics is simply concentrated economics. And the problem is that African people, generally speaking, do not have economics that informs our politics. Our politics does not revolve around, but our politics do. And by which we mean that it is a politic for self-determination, and self-determination is a struggle to capture, to liberate the productive forces. That's the economic component, the productive forces of the African people, African community. So it's a colonial negating work that we do in economic development, and the entities that we create, institutions that we create, et cetera.
Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you. What a wonderful answer to that really good
Yes.
question too.
Yes, I just wanted to, yeah, thank you, Chairman, so much. And it's so inspiring. It really makes people want to be part of this, and white people. And I want to salute Comrade Vito. Am I saying that correctly? Vito P, who just submitted a form to join APSC. So I really want to salute you, Comrade Vito. And it says, why do you want to join APSC? And they answered, to achieve the goal of reparations on all fronts of the movement. Wow,
Uhuru.
that is awesome. So welcome, Uhuru. Very exciting, Comrade Vito.
That is very exciting. Great to hear that. And we also have another contribution of reparations towards the Uhuru Solidarity Center from Dylan. So just to say thank you and Uhuru for that. So that brings the total up to $560 raised during this event.
Great,
so
great.
just really want to appreciate that.
Ooh.
So there weren't any other questions, and we are coming to the end of the time that we had for this program, but just keep donating. If you're watching this recording, that's great. We surpassed our goal. The center needs more than what we set our goal for. So just keep it going, keep contributing. Before we move into announcements and closing, I just wanted to ask Chairwoman Penny, Jesse, and the chairman if you have any final words.
Chairman, please.
Relentless.
Relentless. Vanguard up. Relentless.
True.
Guru. Forward to the African People's Solidarity Committee under the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party. Victory to African people and all oppressed and colonized people everywhere. We are winning.
Absolutely.
We're winning.
Uhuru.
Thank you, Chairman.
All
Thank
right.
you, Chairman. That was profound.
Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Thank you. So we're just going to move into some final announcements, and then we'll do the official closing. But we did want to let people know about some upcoming events and just some other resources for political education and organizing that are available. So on Saturday, January 31st at 2 Pacific, 4 Central, 5 Eastern, join a discussion co-hosted by the Uhuru Solidarity Movement and the Social Justice Committee of the Berkeley Fellowship of Unitarian Universalists. The event is titled Reparations to African People, a Critical Question for Our Times. It will be in person in Oakland, California. and live streamed on the Uhuru Solidarity YouTube channel. So if you're watching on YouTube right now, just come right back here and tune in on Saturday. And you can RSVP at tinyurl.com/reparationsevent Jan 31. And I think we have our chat moderators. We'll put some links into the chat and info about these announcements. All right, next we have, well, it's been talked about during this program, but just calling again on all APSC and USM members and supporters to make plans to attend and register now for the African People's Socialist Party's 2026 International Plenary Conference, themed "This Time Till It's Won, Power in Our Own Hands. It's not just Trump, it's the whole damn system." April 17th through 19th, 2026 in St. Louis, Missouri. More info and registration at apsplenary.org. And we just want to encourage people to subscribe to get the Burning Spear news and analysis sent to your email inbox. So the Burning Spear newspaper is available as a print newspaper. You can also get a PDF edition, but it's also now on Substack. So you can visit theburningspear.substack.com
And this
get the
article is
articles.
amazing. This article is really powerful by Chair Tafari in chair in the continent of Africa.
Yes. So check out theburningspear.substack.com, or if you just Google the Burning Spear Substack, you'll get there. You can sign up to get those articles emailed to you, and then you can become a paid supporter, but it's currently free to get the articles emailed to you. So check that out. And then also check out the One Africa Worldview podcast. So this is on the Burning Spear YouTube channel. If you Google that, or youtube.com/@theburningSpear. They're live on Mondays. They just wrapped up one season, and they'll be starting their next season soon, but Mondays at 3 Eastern, 2 Central, and you can catch up on all the past episodes as well. In addition to all those wonderful online resources, I talked about the print edition of the Burning Spear, and in APSC and USM, we are an organization of organizers. We're on the ground doing outreach, talking with people face to face. So we call on all APSC and USM members and supporters to read and distribute the best organizing tool that we have, the Burning Spear newspaper. And now is the time to order bundles of the February issue. So you can do that by going to theburningspear.store. And a reminder that you can find resources to support selling the spear, how to do that at apscuhuru.org/spear toolkit. And Uhuru Reparations apparel is clothing, accessories, and more that is forwarding the culture of white reparations to African people. It's an institution of Black Star Industries, so we just want to let people know to go to the online store of uhuruplanet.com and check out the newest design, Uhuru Means Freedom, that has a picture here. So that's available in a lot of different shirt formats, sweatshirts, shirts, short sleeve shirts, and everybody has to get this new shirt. It looks so good, and go to uhuruplanet.com. So that is the end of the announcements. For details about those and more upcoming events, you can go to theburningspear.com/events. And just again, thank you to everyone who donated. If you're watching the recording later, you can still contribute. And make sure to visit uhurusolidarity.org and apscuhuru.org to learn more about the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, the African People's Solidarity Committee, and how you can become a member and join the work to build white solidarity with Black power and unity through reparations. Thank you so much to our presenters, Chairman Omali Shatella, APSC Chair Penny Hess, USM Chair Jesse Neville, and to Kara, our MC, and to everyone participating. I just want to say, ICE out now. It's not just Trump, it's the whole damn system. Colonialism must go. Solidarity, not charity, and unity through reparations. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Uhuru.